Slurpty diddly diddly derp, my G's. Hope you're all doing good. Today is Wednesday. I was about to say Monday. I don't know what's going on. Okay, so we last Friday I started this collab thread on my Patreon. It's absolutely free to leave a comment. The comments weren't working before because I had to switch on allow commenting for public people who are not on the platform, which is fine now. So some collabs are already underway in my Discord as well. But if you don't want to join Patreon or don't want to join Discord, I'm still gonna let you guys submit some tracks. Anyone of my YouTube subscribers can submit a track, providing that it's a collab with another subscriber. Next month we're gonna do a collab feedback stream, which is gonna be a lot of fun. But if you guys are looking to find a collab partner, then just head up. There's a link for this post and leave a comment on this page, and then you might find someone there to collab with. But there's already a bunch of collabs on the way in my Discord, I believe. Anyway, one more thing as well. Just for fun, I've just loaded up a little community post poll. I'm just keen to know what your favourite song was of my last 3 solo releases, because they were all quite different, I think. Pharisees was the first one I released just December last year, I think it was, and that's a bit more like neurofunk, a bit more technical, with some melodic parts as well. That was written and inspired by my trip to Israel. I wonder if you like that one better, or do you like Orthodox, the one where I went a bit more experimental with some vocal chanting, and that was kind of inspired also by the country of Georgia, because that's like an Orthodox Christian country, and so yeah, that was a little bit inspired by that. Marrakesh, Morocco inspired me to write this track, Charmer, the most recent one, which is a bit more of a deeper D&B track with a weird kind of atmosphere. But yeah, all 3 quite different in my opinion, but I'd like to know what your favourite is, so leave us a little vote if you can. And yeah, one more thing, I did a spontaneous live stream yesterday. Like I say always, I don't plan them, it's just random, and if you hit the notification bell on my channel, then you'll be notified when I go live. But that's a cool one. I think I made a bunch of nice vital presets. In case you haven't checked it out, feel free to do so. And let's move on today, because I want to talk about don't over reverb stuff, and we're going to do comments at the end. And it's just a really quick little tip and some guidelines and do's and don'ts for using reverb, especially in the synth. And here's my sort of golden rule. We're going to talk mostly about basses, mid basses, and leads. And yeah, the real important sounds in your track that you want to be powerful. Okay, so feel free to go mental on reverbs in your intros, on your atmospheres, on your pads, on your background stuff. But when it comes to the main stuff, you know, your drums, your mid basses, your killer leads, don't over reverb them. And that's not to say that you can't reverb them, and you definitely should, but there's right ways to go about it and wrong ways to go about it, in my opinion. And one wrong way, this is just all from me seeing what students do when I go on in their projects on the one-on-ones. Links always up above if you want to have one-on-one sessions. They are always available. But yeah, this is a repeating thing that I see, especially in the sound design process. It can be Vital, it can be Serum, it can be anywhere. But a lot of these synths, when you go to the effects and you have your reverb here, for example, yeah, it's great that you want to add some reverb in. I understand it makes it sound better. But the problem is the mix knob is the issue here. So when you're in the sound design process in Vital and in Serum, there's ways around it in Phase Plant, but what you're doing here is any amount of mix on the reverb is sacrificing the power of your sound, because you're coming away from the dry. So it's a dry wet knob, okay? So the more reverb you add, the more of the dry that you lose. And you don't have to lose any of the dry, and you shouldn't want to. And you can add reverb as a layer on top of your sound, That's what's gonna make it sound big and powerful, but you're gonna keep the dry in, okay? So if you're doing reverb during your sound design, you have to do it in just a really small amount, you know? And you can also make sure you take out a lot of the low end of the reverb as well here. And just don't go overboard. Because you'll keep that mono power in the sound. And it's always, always, always easy, and you can always add the reverb on afterwards, okay? There are just some moments when you're doing sound design when the reverb is necessary to get that certain tone. And so here, I'm actually sort of reverbing into the distortion, which can create quite an interesting effect. So you will have to use reverb sometimes in your sound design process, but just don't overdo it. Don't go... If you're going up to like 50% or something like that, then you've really lost like a lot of the power of the sound, and you're not gonna ever be able to get that back again. Okay, so just try to keep it 20-30% or so, like at most. If you can avoid using reverb at all, great, even better. So let's say that I've got this, I've used a bit here, but I want to add some more later, which is fine. Bounce this guy out. I'm done with the synth. Then how do you actually add reverb afterwards? Again, if you're going to be doing it on the channel, that's also going to be more often than not sacrificing the original dry signal, because most reverbs have just a dry wet mix. So if I use one like this, like a convolver, which just has the dry wet, anytime I mix it up, I've lost some of the power again, So what's much better to do is obviously just copy it over, have two channels, and have 100% reverb on one. So I'll just move this over here quickly and then move it back. So the first one is completely dry, and the second one I'll just have 100% reverb. Now obviously it's going to be too loud probably, so we'll just turn that second channel down obviously, and then here most importantly I can EQ out the low end really precisely. Golden rule: you don't really ever want to leave reverb in below 500 on your main sounds, on your basses, your leads. Like to be safe, try to always go 500 and upwards, with the reverb layer, and nothing below, because that'll start to take away from the power of your mid-range of the sound. Okay, so try and use that as a golden rule. Of course, rules are there to be broken, but that's the golden rule. That's the kind of standard 500 for me. So that's one way to do it. That's great, and you can go ahead and use any reverb in this scenario, of course. But then the other thing is, what you could do, which I sometimes do, is use a reverb which has the dry wet separately with an EQ built in. So for example, the chroma verb, you have the dry wet separately, so I can add in the wet, and I can also EQ the wet as well. So I can just add a little bit of sparkle on top. It's not sacrificing any of the dry, and it's not really going to get in the way of it because I've EQ'd out most of the low end. So here I'm just adding on like fresh reverb harmonics, but not destroying or sacrificing the main sound, like the original sound. So yeah, that's a cool way to do it. But usually I'll go for this approach where I'll double up the channel and have a separate reverb, separate reverb part. And then if I go for a longer one, for example, like let's say I want a really long reverb, which is often the case. I won't always use a tight one. I will often use like a really, really long one, because it can sound epic as well, It's all about, again, the right tone, the right color for the reverb to fit the sound. It's always different, But let's say I've got this long one now. The problem is, if I were to have this on a send, because I know a lot of you guys use sends, you send out, you've got a reverb send and you're going to send out your track to that. The problem is then you've got no control of the length of it. And so that's why I don't use sends, because you leave yourself vulnerable by not knowing when the reverb ends, okay? Because that's important to me. So what I'll do is once I've got that reverb kind of put on there, I'll bounce it out actually often. If I want to be like really, really precise with my mix down, then I've got a reverb channel all in audio. And then obviously I've got this part here. You know, this in your, if you had it in Ascend, you know, you might, depending on how long the reverb is used, it might go on for ages, you know. But here, where I've bounced it to audio, I can like shorten it there, lovely, in case like the next section it wants to be completely fresh and new and no sort of bleed or overlap from any of my sounds. So if I always bounce out my reverbs, I know that I don't have any of this bleeding over reverb ever, yeah, unless I want it, you know, but I can see that I don't have it, which is great. So that's why I prefer to bounce out the reverbs like that, just to keep things nice and organized and tidy. So that's the little tip on don't overdoing the reverb. But the most important thing I just wanted to stress and emphasize is that if you're in Serum, Vital, Current, Zebra 2, Massive, whatever, most of them, if you're mixing on some reverb, the more you mix on, the more you lose of the original sound. And just like a tube of toothpaste, you won't be able to get it back in. So add on reverb later in a layer on top of the dry sound, and then you'll keep your dry sound super, super powerful, and you'll get the best of both worlds. You have the powerful dry sound plus the reverb as like a stereo addition that hasn't taken away from the original by this stupid mixed knob, mix on and off nonsense. Okay, so just be careful of that, because it will definitely improve your power, the power of your sounds when you pay attention to that. So thank you for listening to me ramble on about that. Let's do a couple of comments before I leave. Yeah, you guys have kind of figured out the collab thing now, so feel free to comment on there. Kai-san RSA as well says he's keen for that, and Legend, thank you. On the most recent video I did on the D&B drum layering tips, it's quite a long video, that one. Sebastian says, great stuff, thanks. Quality mate, big up, says Adukan. Adimas Hario, finally I'm part of the squad, soldier. Thank you for joining Patreon, sir. Count House Helmet as well says, flex stretching is great for making kicks into toms, big boy. Yes, I am a big boy, and yes, that's probably true with the tom technique. Slurpty Derp says, Mike, drums always give me trouble, especially trying to make different beats. This tutorial helps me a lot. Yeah, I think you guys have got some value from the last drum tutorial there. And Darotum says, banger vid, I like the TikTok hi-hats with one pitch down or up. Yeah, that definitely helps. And yes, that's about it for today, my G's. Thank you for watching. And yes, this Friday also we're launching a new track on the label, the REQIIV remix of my track, ZUGZWANG. Hope you guys will enjoy that. And I'll catch up with you guys tomorrow. Peace.